Welcome to Consults Over Coffee. I'm Dr. Michael Jones. I'm joined today by Debbie Dust. She has a master's in health administration and holds multiple training and coaching certificates. Debbie is one of the most experienced folks in the industry that you'll meet. She's here to discuss the recent CDC data on COVID outbreaks in gyms, and she'll provide us with suggestions for how to stay healthy, fit, and safe during these strange times. I think you'll want to hear this. All right, well, welcome to another Consults Over Coffee. We're trying a slightly different format today. I'm here with Debbie Dust, and we're here to talk about COVID and fitness, and in particular, exercising indoors. There's been some interesting information released within the last week from the Centers for Disease Control that was not overly positive.
True. For those of you who have not seen it, the New York Times did publish an article that's been syndicated that basically the CDC has reported that there have been findings in fitness centers, and particularly HIIT classes and cycle classes, where precautions were not being followed, that a significantly high rate of COVID-19 infections have occurred in a couple places. In Chicago and Honolulu were the ones that were in particular reported in the article and in the study that was released. But it just asks some very interesting questions about what's going on out there. And, you know, what's been happening in large in the fitness industry with COVID-19, and sort of some of the ramifications moving forward for businesses and for people who want to continue to exercise indoors. You know, what does that all mean?
What's a HIIT class?
A HIIT class, HIIT, H-I-I-T, high intensity interval training. So basically, you know, in various formats, using, you know, in some cases, though not expressly kind of, you know, frowned on when it comes to guidelines, shared equipment, but basically high intensity, short burst intervals, 1 minute or less in duration.
Yeah. All right. So folks going hard indoors, basically.
Yes. Yeah. Ham.
How many people got infected?
You know, I want to say that, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think 22 in the Chicago incident, and more than that in Honolulu. But pretty much the vast majority of the folks that were either in that cycling class or in that HIIT class, you know, ended up walking away, getting sick. I want to say that nobody ended up dying, but there were some hospitalizations. People who were affected by that.
It sort of sounds like, I mean, early on, there were these experiences with particularly choir practices indoors that became essentially super spreader events. As you can imagine, people singing loudly in proximity to each other spreads a lot of fomites, I guess is the term. And this is a similar kind of thing. And I was thinking when I saw the CDC release, we have a friend of ours who months ago got COVID doing an indoor cycling class in Williamsburg.
About a year ago. It was right about a year ago. Yeah. I remember finding out afterwards that, yeah, indeed, small, you know, close quarters, not great ventilation. Somebody had traveled recently who was in that class, and everyone in that class ended up with COVID, including my friend who had a hard time with it, you know, and she's recovered and okay now, and that was before we really had a whole lot of knowledge, and it was a really scary time. I mean, it's still a very scary time, but it was especially scary because we hadn't had a chance to really live into, you know, and there were so many unknowns of what it was looking like.
What are the current Commonwealth of Virginia guidelines for exercising indoors?
I believe right now we're permitted to operate at 75% capacity indoors. Masking requirements indoors, basically while you're actively exercising, the requirement is not that you have a mask, that you can go unmasked during exercise, but in common areas or while not actively exercising, you know, guidelines would say that you should have a mask on. You know, temperature checks and health checks are things that are not necessarily mandated, but you know, there are facilities that are engaging in those practices, and then enhanced cleaning protocols also are part of that. So reduced capacity and physical distancing, yeah.
How do you reconcile 75% capacity and physical distancing in a gym? I'm asking. It's a legitimate question. It seems like it's logistically a difficult thing to do.
Speaking firsthand and, based upon the knowledge and conversations that I've had with others who are working actively in these types of spaces, it's incredibly difficult to do that. And it kind of falls on leadership at facilities and businesses to enforce those things. But at the end of the day, I mean, truly, people are going to do what they're going to do, and that's kind of the problem. People are going to do, and people are going to, sadly, they're going to end up sick. So yeah, I mean, I think the enforcement once you're past the front door, is incredibly difficult. And I think that there are people, they're indoor exercisers. They want to go to the gym. They want to work out in the gym, and who do mask and or wear eyewear or whatever else, if that's what they're going to do, that's great. But I think for the, people who go to the gym who are completely unmasked and they work out with their bros and, or whatever, and they're spotting each other, that kind of thing, like, it's just really not okay.
No, but difficult times, stressful times bring out the best and worst in people, as we see.
Look for the helpers. Look for the helpers.
Look for the helpers. Look for the helpers.
They're out there.
Yeah. So I guess, what do you say? What do you say to folks, who do want to exercise inside? Let me ask you this, because the immediate pushback I've gotten from people is, well, I can't exercise and wear a mask, right? I hear that all the time.
Well, and that's okay. If you prefer to exercise and not wear a mask, then, outdoors is always an option. Very well ventilated, the outdoors.
It's getting to be spring.
But at the same time, there are people who don't want to wear a mask, who don't like to exercise outdoors either. And when that happens, it's okay, because I know it can be, I don't want to work out inside. I can't do another video. I can't do another YouTube class at home. I can't stand this. That's when you find help. You call a professional, somebody who, is a professional in the fitness industry, who has that knowledge and can help you find an option that's going to work for you, or mix of options that are going to work for you and reduce your exposure. And that may not mean don't go to the gym at all and work out inside, but it may mean, there are some things that you can do outdoors and maybe limit your exposure by not going to the gym quite as frequently and incorporating and making your, other things and making your program a little bit more well-rounded. So there are professionals out there that will help you, personal trainers who are exceptionally talented in the Richmond area and everywhere. It is a legitimate profession. It's a career path. And those people are out there and they are looking for, ways to help. The entire industry has really pivoted and transitioned through COVID, and a lot of businesses are actually thriving. Their models have adjusted, and in such a way that they've been able to do well. And then others who have been a little bit slower to transition through the various phases of COVID with reopening are the ones that have had problems. So they're out there.
So for folks in the Richmond area, I guess, are there play, and I don't want to throw places under the bus and point fingers, and it's let's keep it positive. Are there places that are clearly doing it well, in terms of if you wanted to work out inside? Are there places that someone could go where they're going to be safer if they're concerned about that? Because clearly some of these people aren't concerned at all, which is why we're in the mess we're in. But are there some places that are probably better suited than others, or doing a slightly better job than others? Or what should folks look for if they're looking for a gym? Because we know a bunch of people that I cancel my membership here, it's on hold, blah, 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 I'm not going back to the gym. But if they wanted to and they don't want to work out outside, or they can't do the things they want to do outside, what should they look for?
Well, it really depends on kind of what their risk tolerance is. So if their risk tolerance is pretty low and or pretty high, the best way to find out information is, first of all, going to a gym or a fitness facility's website. they should all have what their COVID procedures are and what their policies are very clearly posted on their websites or on their social media. So you can weed out pretty quickly any establishment that's not necessarily all that interested in enforcing guidelines. You also might want to look, away from smaller intimate spaces that are poorly ventilated, that do high intensity training, HIT studios, not putting out any particular franchised names or anything. But yeah, those small high intensity studios, if they're doing indoor classes, you might want to stay away from something like that, especially even in groups as small as 6. Those are usually pretty small spaces. And if they're physically distancing only 6 feet, there are data now that show that that's not adequate. So a lot of those guys do spill out into the parking lot if they're going to offer outdoor alternatives and they have enhanced cleaning protocols. Like, go for it. Absolutely.
It's always been interesting to me that the 6 foot number. It's sort of an extrapolated number that my understanding was based on studies done in military personnel, asymptomatic military personnel, where essentially they had them in a closed protected space and put little petri dishes, right, that you use or that you use to inoculate cultures to see what grows at different intervals away from them on the floor, and then look to see as they exhaled how far out they could grow cultures. So how far your spread of oral secretions, oropharyngeal secretions went, and the average was 6 feet. But there were also they had some people that were 20 feet. That were still seeding dishes 20 feet away. So there are people who were excellent fomite spreaders. 6 is kind of a made-up number. So 6 is probably the minimum distance.
And that's with not necessarily, exhaling.
Breathing hard.
Exactly.
That's not singing.
So,
that's not...
I always kind of think to myself, like, if I walk past somebody who's smoking a cigarette and I can smell the smoke half a block away.
I can smell the virus.
Guess what's in the air?
I can smell the virus.
And so another way that somebody could kind of go about figuring out what might be a comfortable environment for them to work out in, at least in this area, believe it or not, is ask their friends. Like-minded friends who perhaps have the same types of concerns that they have, or their professional network, or you just kind of reach out and see what's going on out there. And ask, hey, have you been working at this place? Or I know you worked out at this place before. Have you talked to anybody who's been going in there? Do you know what's going on? Or if you know somebody who works in the industry in town, like ask them, hey, do you know anything about what's going on at this place or that place, or what's going on at your place? So I know that smaller, studios that really severely restrict the number of folks that are in their space tend to do a little bit well. They do well that enforce masking requirements for staff and for people that are in their space. I know some exceptions for people who maybe have breathing difficulty with asthma or allergies or something, in which case the masking rule is not nullified. I mean, they still need to wear their mask, but while they're actively exercising, their heart rate's out, their respiration rate is elevated. Yeah, and then put that thing right back on. And there are a lot of different types of masks out there. So it's not like you have to wear one that, there are some that are shaped a little bit differently that might give you a little bit more ease with breathing, breathing heavy. So, do your research, and do your homework on that side too. It's not just, a factor of their rules. It's what can you do also to put yourself in a good position to be okay.
And I think, big picture time, I get that folks, nobody's happy right now about any of this, nor should they be. But the reality is that there are over 500,000 dead people in this country from this thing. And so, if maybe you can't do your high intensity workout for a while because the mask maybe makes things a little harder, or you can't do it as often as you would like, that's an inconvenience. Death is a bigger inconvenience. And the death of someone else because you couldn't be bothered to do what was basically public health 101. I think it's a matter of putting things in perspective. This is clearly, it's never been about people's rights. It's never been about your freedom, quote unquote. I I understand, businesses are impacted and in a major way. And frankly, there just hasn't been federal government support to help people do the right thing. Hopefully that will change. But I wore a mask pretty much all day at work. You wear a mask pretty much all day at work.
Double mask all day.
Yeah, and so it's doable. There are a lot of different masks. I think it's a matter of finding one that fits. We have a mutual friend in Chicago who frankly posts his basically almost weekly new mask review.
It's all on there. You don't have to do any of your own. Just read this guy's feed.
Yeah.
You're good.
So there's all that is out there, and that's. But I think it really does. It just kind of the weather will warm up. It will be easier to get outside. The average daily COVID cases have been declining nationally for a couple weeks now. Virginia has done pretty well. I think I saw the average daily cases is down like 17%, which is good. Virginia, despite the lynch mobs running around looking for Governor Northam, Northam's actually done, from a public health point of view, has done a pretty good job in keeping us safe. Virginia has done fairly well compared to a number of states.
Thanks to like high quality executive level management and administration here in the Commonwealth. So thank you to those guys.
Yeah.
But you did mention the business aspect of it, and I do want to just touch on that a little bit because the fitness industry it's hurting. I mean, it's set to lose. Businesses have gone, large businesses have gone bankrupt, and a lot have closed, and they're all experiencing loss. Only 50% loss in revenue. Just in 2020 alone. So, when it comes time
is that
for
industry-wide?
Industry-wide, yeah, wow. Kind of across the board. So if your gym is still around, they're doing all right, I guess. But they're certainly, I think that the numbers that I read the other day are 65% of people interviewed who'd previously had a gym membership pre-COVID are not going to go back. So, in the home exercise equipment industry is booming, and it's really difficult to get equipment to have at home at this point too. So I mean, that's kind of a confounding thing as well. But if you are somebody that is still wanting to go to a gym, if that's part of your routine and that's cool, and you're game to mask and whatever else, help those business owners out too. If people are not in compliance with rules, a lot of times it's hard for a business owner who's trying to keep their membership, grow their membership, just get back to where they were, just get back to being profitable. It helps them to not have to enforce these things, because as soon as somebody, comes up to you and says, "I'm sorry, but your mask needs to cover your nose." Well, this is ridiculous, and they get really...
Wear your mask like you would wear your underwear.
Exactly. It's not a chin diaper, okay? But no, I mean, these guys are trying to survive. So, don't be that guy. It's hard on business owners who are trying to be successful and gosh, just not end up in the red at the end of the year. So
are there places I realize, you can't really take a treadmill outside. But at one point, I remember you guys were taking the exercise bikes outside.
Yeah, we were doing outdoor classes. So a big box has a harder time pivoting. They're not as agile. They have more layers of management and leadership, especially if they have numerous locations. There's a lot of logistics involved with moving equipment outside and getting qualified instructors to come out and teach and getting the word out that, hey, we're doing these things. These are an option, and you have to reserve your spot because we've got 8 bikes and we don't want 20 people showing up. So there's a lot that goes into it on the kind of the logistics and operations side of just being able to take something that is really easy to do indoors and moving it outdoors. The sound system. You've got a nice sound system in your studio, and it sounds really awesome. And then you go outside and you've got a block rocker,
who's got a boom box,
and no microphone, and you're gonna have audio issues, and the sound quality is it's not gonna be the same experience. But the other piece of fitness that I think is so huge, and this is a good kind of way to put this in there is kind of work this in here, is community is important. And I think that, a lot of people, their gym or, the why, I'll just put that one out there, and even smaller places like the feel of community, the feel of family, and the people that come to classes that you go to, or people that kind of frequent the gym the same time of day that you do, or colleagues, depending on where your gym is, those relationships, especially if you're working at home, like those things have changed like big time. So, that sense of community or belonging. I mean, there are some people that I knew used to come into the gym and like, you're the only person that's nice to me all day. You're the only person I see smile all day because I work at the jail, or something like that. It's like, those are real, but they're real losses.
No, it's true.
And so why you think, it's a gym, it's a luxury, it costs me $50 a month, I'll spend that $50 on something else. There's a lot more to it than just the workout piece of it, the exercise piece of it. It's certainly, sort of transcends it, no matter how big or small, the gym necessarily is. And it's kind of incumbent upon people who work at those places to build those relationships because, obviously they want to keep you as a member. But also they want to see you have success, whatever that is. Some people that means losing X amount of weight. Other people it means just getting here 3 days a week. That's it.
I think the sense of community thing is huge right now. Nationally, we're kind of a global embarrassment, largely because of a lack of community and this incredible tribalism that exists in this country right now. And tribalism exists when people don't come out of their holes, and they don't interact with other people. I think the more people, what was it? I'm going to screw up the quote, but I thought it was kind of a Mark Twain quote about like travel cures bigotry or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But it is. If you the more you travel, the more you get out in the world, the more you realize that everybody's pretty much the same. Everybody pretty much wants the same thing at the end of the day. So the people that are easy to dupe, that the bad brown people will come and take your things. The people that you can fool with that are primarily people that don't get out of the house much. They don't get out of their neighborhood much. And so I think building community is just such an important aspect. And maybe as we kind of reemerge from all of this, going forward, the idea of having classes just where we bring people together, not just to see how high you can get your heart rate or what your functional threshold power is or any of this. I mean, that's all fine. But the fact is that not only is this about physical well-being, fitness is about mental well-being.
And in my experience, it's been interesting, obviously the gym is the gym, but the ones who do the community building well and have longevity with their members and their memberships are the ones that build community by doing things like having book club or having special event classes, that kind of thing. Because there's a little bit of accountability there. Like, oh, well, you come to class all the time and they're doing this on the weekend this one day. And I think probably we should do it. So you get your buddies and you rally together and you do that kind of stuff's just not happening right now. So book club, coffee club, and seniors especially. Oh my gosh.
Well, and I think as the weather warms up, those kinds of things are going to be easier to do. You can get folks outdoors where it's easy to have a group of people safely interact. Whereas if you're going to put 6 people in a broom closet, it's not going to end well right now.
Well, it kind of calls for me, obviously I've been in this industry for more than 20 years. It's not all about working out and it's not all about exercise. And when it is about working out or exercise, it's not always about high intensity training. It's like exercise is what it is. It's a behavior. Exercise is a behavior, but it's made up of a bunch of different activities. And so you can still exercise, but maybe just change what activities you engage in, and try things that are different. That's one thing that I've kind of noticed. Like I went and got yoga teacher trained during COVID, and learned a bunch of stuff. And here's me, like type A, I want to work hard. I want to go ham. I'm going to go all out when I work out. I don't want to do it very long, but I want to be done with it. And I want to feel like I did something when I'm done. not everybody feels that way, and there are a lot of different ways to get, and I never thought, here's me, I'm gonna do a 60-minute yoga practice and it's gonna kick my butt. Like, yeah, no, it's not. Oh yes, it will. And I love it. And it's not just the asanas, it's not just the poses, it's not the physical part of it, it's the mental part of it as well. So when you kind of take a step out of what your routine is, as good as it is to have a routine when it comes to your exercise behavior, you're kind of looking outside the box from that and sort of looking at behavior more generally, and what activities sort of fall to exercise behavior. There's so much out there. And I think the well-being piece of it, the mental well-being and health piece of it, the finding community piece of it, getting a good workout piece of it, having a feeling of belonging and accountability to others in that community that you share kind of a common vision with and are not tribal, those things matter. And I think as the vaccinations, kind of that rollout sort of escalates and people feel a little bit more comfortable and the weather gets warmer, I think that people will obviously become more active, but I don't know that they'll necessarily be going back to the gym. And if they're going to go back to the gym, they better do their homework.
We've talked about this before. I think as things open back up, I was thinking my own point of view, it's like, I'm happy to go, play an outdoor gig with a band somewhere. Am I real anxious to go play some, gig in a bar, for $100?
Well, and I had
No, I'm not. And I think it's going to be a long time before, frankly, all that comes back. Are we ready to go back to movie theaters?
No.
I don't think so, but you saw, what is it? The Movieplex. What's that? Bowtie is setting up. The drive-in is going to make a comeback, which I think is just brilliant.
At least temporarily, anyway.
It's just brilliant. The other thing you did mention the vaccination piece, and I do want to put a bit in here, just as speaking as a physician who's followed this. In any other time, the story of vaccine development for COVID-19, if you think back a year ago, we did not even know what this virus was. And in less than a year, we have identified a virus, we have sequenced the structure of the virus, and developed several different vaccines. Because rather than just kind of try one and see what happened, early on, there was a push to kind of do parallel development. And there are multiple vaccines out that are efficacious, that appear to be very safe as well. There have been a couple people that have had allergic reactions, but it's a minuscule number, and it's not out of proportion to anything that you would expect anywhere else.
I have a vaccine question for you.
Yeah.
So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the efficacy is not quite as high. It's a single dose vaccine. So if it was offered to me, I would have this, I think probably the mentality is any vaccine is better than no vaccine. Well,
here's the thing. In a previous time, if you were talking about vaccine development, efficacy of greater than 50% was considered good.
Right.
The J&J vaccine, I think, is 66%. But in terms of preventing serious illness, it's in the 90s.
I'll admit,
right?
I had that thought occurred to me, like, well, if they offer me the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it's not as efficacious. Like, I want the other one. And it's kind of like, well, no, any vaccine is better than none.
Is better than
so go with it.
They're all good. So get the vaccine that you can get. And I wouldn't be hesitant about getting it. And the fact is, and you can say, well, then, why do we have to wear masks and so forth? The fact is that it is still possible to become infected even if you've been vaccinated. You are less likely to die, which is a good thing. But you can still potentially transmit the infection, which is why that we all still need, even I've been vaccinated, we still need to, wear a mask, follow the social distancing guidelines,
and wash your hands.
And wash your hands.
That's the other thing at the gym. There's a lot of surface cleaning going on at the gym.
Yeah,
for sure. Which is a good thing, absolutely, because it should have always been going on. But remember, it's an airborne virus.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here today.
It was great, and I do want to give a shout out to Robin and Rob Skates and the Skates family in my favorite coffee cup, and I am drinking coffee from New Orleans in it right now. So,
Boom.
cheers, stay safe. We'll see you soon. Catch you next week.
Bye.